All right, another Screamfest film here. Kaylee optioned out of this one because of the premise. This has to do with a group of animal activists who go to a slaughterhouse to try to free the animals. And when they get there, they run into some issues with the owners, and of course, there's a big fight and struggle and fight for survival. Now, this is from the Netherlands. This is a Dutch film, and yeah, I don't. This is a tough one because I feel like there's such a specific audience for this movie. There's a lot of people who really hate like the PETA style, almost like anarchist animal activists who are trying to impose their opinions and will onto others and screaming in their face and throwing blood on people and, over the top stuff. But, on the flip side of that, I totally understand where certain people are coming from when they see these horrible living conditions, when they see the abuse that these animals are going through, and they feel like this is like an animal genocide, and they're witnessing like a an animal holocaust, and they're trying to speak up for them, and of course no one listens because animals don't have the rights that humans do, and it's like, well, they're our property, we can do whatever we want to them. So, I totally understand why that would piss people off. And, I'm somebody who absolutely feels for animals. And I'm also not someone who's like saying that humans should never eat animals. And I definitely eat meat myself. And, but I am much more in line with like some way of making this practice much more humane, because the videos that I've personally seen and the conditions that these animals live in is unacceptable and horrendous, and there's definitely not enough being done about it, and it is angering, and it's impossible to watch. And anyway, so I feel like just that topic alone, it's a very hot button issue, and it's going to agitate and anger lots of people. And then you also, if you're somebody who's just like, I'm kind of neutral on that, or like it doesn't trigger me or upset me as much or whatever, on either side of the spectrum, you're also now dealing with a movie where, and I think this is kind of the point, maybe, I don't know this person's beliefs or politics that wrote and directed this film, so I don't really know exactly where they stand on this issue and maybe what they're trying to say, but kind of what I took from it, because like overall I don't really know if I liked the movie that much, but as I said, I think kind of the point might be that in the film both sides are kind of presented in a way where they both seem in the wrong, and they both seem kind of villainous and fucked up. But I think there is like this one character who's the center of the film, and she's the character that we're kind of viewing things through, because she is someone who goes to work at the factory to expose them. She records some footage, she gets caught, she gets thrown out, and then she seems to have like this desire to be an activist with this group, but they keep rejecting her because they don't think she's hardcore enough. So when she brings them the footage that she sneaks out, this gets them to let her be a part of the group. And then they're like, okay, let's go, let these animals free. And so she comes with them. And of course, their tactics are way too extreme for her, and she's trying to fit in, and she's trying to kind of go with the flow and be part of the crew, but she's also like, no, this is wrong, this is too much, this is crazy, it's over the top. And there's the peer pressure and whatnot of the group. It's like, you don't really care about these animals, blah blah blah. And then you've got the people who are part of the factory, who some of it is showing that this is a business, this is their livelihood, this is what they've done, and some of the people who work there are the person who owns the place's kids, and they're one of them is kind of just doing the family business and is going along with it, and so they paint him in a somewhat sympathetic light. And so I don't know, I feel like people might get wrapped up in the preachiness and think that that's where this is kind of going, and will just be put off by it instantly. I wasn't. I was really just kind of trying to let the film develop and explain itself and show its hand fully before I made my decision on whether or not I was vibing with it. And the story, most of the characters are pretty insufferable and pretty villainous, and in the end, a lot of people expose themselves for their true nature. And as I said, I think that's kind of supposed to be the point. At the end of the day, it's the humans that are the problem, and that the animals are innocent, and that humans are just fucking screwed up. Which I think in that regard, I think they're fairly successful. So maybe the film is successful in its messaging, but who's going to sit through this and find enjoyment or find the message resonates? I don't know. I think that if you're somebody who's immediately shut off by this premise, whether you're somebody who's like no, I can't watch that happen, like Kaylee, on that end of the spectrum, is like I don't want to put myself through any of that. I will say though, you don't get almost any like animal abuse in the movie. You get a little bit in the opening. That's not really focused on. So they're not like in the movie, Uebel's Seed or something, where they're showing you PETA footage, or they're showing you, animals being tortured, for like an extended period of time or something. Like, no, that doesn't happen. There is some, but it's pretty minuscule, which I was very thankful for, because that's the last thing on earth I want to see. Even in a film like this. So I will say that. But if you're just somebody who doesn't even want to grapple with that concept at all, deal with it in any way, totally understandable and whatever. And then if you're somebody who's like, no, I hate these kinds of people and I can't stand this kind of movie or this kind of message or whatever, then of course that this is going to upset you just from the jump. So if you are somebody who's kind of intrigued by this premise and are interested in this, I think the movie's fine. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more gore and violence with what's happening. There is some, and it gets pretty violent at times. I'm just kind of like a gore hound, so I would like to have seen more in that way. And I think the reason is more because I don't really like the characters all that much, or we only have like maybe one or two characters that are even semi-relatable. Everybody else feels like an extremist, and is unreachable and is too preachy and pushy with their beliefs. So and then some of the things that they get up to and the things they're doing are too extreme. They're pushing way too hard. This is not how you bring upon change, right? Like this is not how you do it. As frustrating as like the legal system can be, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't protest, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't have your voice and whatever, but what these people are doing is too extreme. Where they go and what they do. There's a kid involved and stuff, and they're antagonizing the kid. No, this is too extreme and too far. And then the family that they're doing this to, what they're doing and where they go with it is too extreme. So everybody kind of feels like a monster, and that doesn't make for a very entertaining watch. But then again, with the messaging of the film, I don't think it's trying to be entertaining, right? So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I'm kind of in the middle. If there was a point in the movie where I was like, I'm really not liking this. Like, these people are just all awful. I can't stand them. Then we got into like the last 30 minutes, and there was some things being done and said that I was like, okay, interesting. All right, I like that. All right. And then the very end, as ridiculous as it is, because people seem to just kind of sit there and take it and never fight back when it's convenient for the plot, mostly just because of messaging. So they'll just do something where you're like, okay, why wouldn't you fight back, or why wouldn't you do this? Like, that's so stupid to me. But that's not the point, right? It's film. It's supposed to have a message. It's supposed to mean something. So yeah, the ending is fucked up, and the last like 5 minutes is like, oh shit, oh shit. If you can just accept it for how silly certain things are. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting conversation piece, but I also think it's a conversation piece that a lot of people would just get very like, uh, you know, rage induced over. Right? There'd be a lot of like fighting, and maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. As I said, I'm very conflicted on who I would even recommend this to. This is a tough one. This is a tough one to recommend to anybody, because I feel like there's going to be so many opinions on it. But that's kind of the point, so maybe that's a good thing, you know. So I guess they're successful in that regard, right? So, all right. There's my very confused review of Meat Kills, which I thought this had a different title when on the actual screen, but as far as Screamfest is concerned, it is being, you know, it is being labeled as Meat Kills. All right, that's that. It comes out probably sometime next year. If you come across it and you watch it, let me know, and I'll see you in the comments. Adios.